Oh my gosh. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today, Riana. For everybody listening, welcome back. And we met actually in a business mentorship program and developed a friendship and have talked, here and there online. And we have similar stories about what we've gone through and where we are now. So I just couldn't wait to have you on the podcast and share you with everybody. Go ahead and take it away. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much first off for having me on this podcast. It was just synchronistic that we met in that I don't even remember how we met, but meeting in that was just like, "Oh my god, your story is just like mine and we need to
Yes.
meet up." But for those who are listening, I am Dr. Reana Mulcahy. I am a physical therapist by trade, but I've actually throughout my weird long journey have transitioned into coaching where I actually help high achieving entrepreneurs break free from the stress and anxiety and the overwhelm that comes with a lot of, big goals as well. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So needed. Thank you for introducing yourself. And I just tell me a little bit about what life was like perhaps before starting your personal development inner work journey. You mentioned, that you're a physical therapist, but how did you view the world? How did you feel about yourself? Just anything that you think would resonate and that you'd like to share.
Yeah. Well, I definitely used to call myself also, I mean, I still do, but like a high achieving woman,
Yes.
meaning like, I always had my eyes set on the biggest goals, like being the top of the class. Everything was about winning, so to speak, or like being the
Achievement.
best. Yes, achievement oriented. And a lot of it was what can be in my control. Like,
Hmm.
which in life I learned the hard way that a lot of things we
Not
cannot
much.
control.
Not a whole lot.
And so, yes, it's like the way that I grew up was very much like put your head down, work hard, achieve everything you can, work while you're young. Like, those were all the stories that were drilled into me as a child and me as a high achiever. And that really contributed a lot to my story and ultimately what led to the personal development because
Mm.
I burnt out as a physical therapist. And I do attribute a lot of my burnout to those indoctrinated stories that
Yeah.
drove the way that I approach things or used to approach things.
Yeah. Would you say that your worth, like being good enough and feeling like you matter and all those types of things, was wrapped up in how much you achieved?
Yes.
Okay.
I
That was the
simply
same for
put,
me.
yes, if I fell short of a goal
Yeah.
or if I suddenly started questioning my goal.
Yeah.
So, for example, all throughout undergrad, I thought I wanted to actually be in med school.
Hmm.
And
Me too.
yeah, and then it was like I did the shadowing. I was even preparing for the MCAT. Like this was my
Oh,
junior
you were.
year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
I
exited like first semester. I was like, just kidding, folks.
no, I went the whole route pretty much.
Wow.
And there was like this inkling of doubt within me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this whole thing about man, I don't really know if my personality fits this, all these other things.
Hmm.
I was so afraid to just even trust that because
Mm.
I was so outcome oriented where it's like, no, I said I was going to do this. And so I need to do it. Right.
Mm.
And I felt lost in the sense of if my goals ever changed or if I fell short of a goal,
Yeah.
then I was always like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like
Yes.
I'm not good enough or I must
Yes.
not know what I want. I'm a lost soul type of
Oh,
thing.
I
And that's
love
that
that
high
you shared that.
achieving. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that you mentioned that intuition and you had that sweet, but you kind of just like brushed it to the side, which is so common. And I feel like so many of the women listening will resonate with that. I did that too. And now I really, really listen to my intuition. Oh,
Yes. And that's the biggest thing too, is it's like, that's how I used to view the world too, is if you like, you had to know what you wanted
mhm.
and you're not allowed to change because
Yeah.
yeah.
Why not?
I have no idea,
Yeah.
but a lot of that high achieving instilled that in me where I found value and
Mhm.
validation in how big my goals were or how big my achievements were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if I changed it to anything that didn't get the same reaction from people,
Yeah.
right? Then it was less in my
Mhm.
mind. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. I totally get that. Okay. So talk to me about maybe a little bit leading up to the burnout, being in the midst of burnout. What was life like then?
Yes. So, you know, we kind of touched a lot about just like how I viewed goals and things like that.
Mhm.
But even just like the way that I viewed achievement and
Mhm.
the way to get achievements really factored into my behaviors and my decisions. And also the way that I interpreted a lot of things.
Yeah.
So this ultimately, right, if we it's hard to even say that this was 4 years ago, but like because it feels like a lifetime ago because the work that I've done has felt like 10, 20 years worth of
Yes.
just healing.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest thing that I remember if I were to talk about just kind of like the lead up to the burnout,
Yeah.
a lot of it really was just this like, it wasn't just the doing, right?
Mhm.
Yes, there was the doing of like always saying yes to things to try to, show that I'm a team player, to move up the ladder or move up the value scale, right? Or
Yep.
there was times where it's like, okay, I don't have capacity, but because I want to be a team player and because I worry about people seeing me
Mm.
as like a giving person, I
Mhm.
would squeeze people in at over my lunches or
Mm.
at,
People pleasing
7:30.
tendencies to the max.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yeah.
all of that was because I had this story that if you don't take every opportunity,
Mm.
then that means you might miss out and then you might not reach success.
You were operating from like this place of
Yes.
loss. What
Mhm.
am I going to lose versus what's possible for me if I take care of myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that it led to me having like panic attacks, literally,
Mm. Yeah.
where if conflict ever came up, whether it was with a patient or with my, former boss,
Yeah.
it became a thing of like, I would not sleep at night because I would ruminate on and replay the story over and over and over
Yes.
again, trying to nitpick what is it that I could have done different,
Yeah.
like to get a different response or a different outcome.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't just the doing of like putting people in my lunches and those things, but a lot of it came from the emotional and mental energy that I was putting into
Constantly.
constantly trying to read the room, constantly trying to control people's perception of me,
Oh, yeah.
constantly like doing all these things.
People are going to resonate with this so much. It's so common.
It's
Not,
so common.
yeah. And you're saying consciously, but I think for many people, someone subconsciously walking into a room and expecting that people will believe whatever you're insecure about. So if you feel like you don't matter, a lot of times people are walking in the rooms expecting that nobody else thinks like they matter. Or if they feel insecure about being likable, they walk into a room subconsciously, no one's going to like me. And maybe
Yes.
to say things like that. I'm so glad that you were at least conscious of it so that you
To
could
an
step out.
extent,
Okay.
to an extent, because, and I do think that that was what also led to the burnout was I didn't realize for a very long time that I was doing these things.
Yeah.
right? Like we hear all the time from people the cliches of you need to love yourself and you need to show yourself
Mhm.
compassion and all these
Mhm.
things. And yes, it resonates. But when you don't actually realize like what is the loop here that's going on that's like causing this in the first place,
Yeah.
you're just kind of automatically doing it without
Yeah.
even thinking. And then that also leads down another loop of self beat up where you're like, why do I keep doing this? Like,
Mhm.
why do I care so much about what people think or, what my boss thinks or all these
Mhm.
things?
Mhm.
And for a very long time, I was so frustrated because I had no idea why I put so much merit into the opinions of others.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't until the inner work that I
Yeah.
figured it out. Yeah.
Bam. Did you okay, let me go back to that last line. I had no idea why. Question, did you think, "Oh, this is just the way that I am?"
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yes, yes, I
And
resonate
I
with that, and so many of my clients, they're like, "No, I'm just an anxious person. I'm just a people pleaser. I'm just a perfectionist." It's like, "No, you are not. No, you
yeah.
are not. This is just how you've been up to this point.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
change it at any moment."
Yes, you can. And I fell victim, like, for any listeners out there who's like, yes, I am one of those people who believes I am just that,
Mhm.
and you feel bad about that, like, please don't, because all of us for a very long time were indoctrinated to believe that that's just the way we are. I mean, I
Yes.
went to therapy for like, I don't know, 10 years
Yeah.
and never got any relief because a lot of it was just reinforcing, in a sense, that's
Mhm.
just the way you are. Like, you have to
Mhm.
learn how to cope with it. And it's like,
Nope.
no, you
We're
don't.
not just gonna cope with it. We are going to eradicate it, baby.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Anything else about before inner work that you feel is important to share that you wanna share?
Yeah. I really, I know those are the two big ones,
Yeah.
but a lot of it too came down to just, the drive of needing to be accepted
Mhm.
and needing to feel loved and needing like a lot of the behaviors, looking back, obviously, but I realized we're coming from a void that I was trying to fill.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, like we feel that void,
Mhm.
but we don't actually realize how we've been coping for so long.
Mhm.
And a lot of these were just coping mechanisms that like made me feel good or in control temporarily.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm curious if you'll resonate with this or not. When you said a few minutes ago, like, oh, just love yourself. And you're like, I get it. And I think I got it. I think I was like, this is so weird. Um, I had this moment, just this memory popped up in my mind. I was actually interviewing in 2012 for a position at NASA.
Hmm.
And I was nervous and I was open about it too, not to the person that I was interviewing with, but beforehand I was waiting while somebody else interviewed. And I told these women who they already worked there, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous." And they responded, "Just be yourself." I didn't say anything at that point, but that was the worst thing that I could have been told because at that point, I was control freak, perfectionist, high functioning anxiety, people pleaser, all the things,
Yep.
all of the defensiveness, all those patterns. And so when they said, just be yourself, who I thought I was, were these things that I was hiding
Yes.
versus who I know I am post inner work is love. And anything that
Yes.
is not love is insecurities,
Hmm.
trauma, defensiveness,
Yep.
all of that.
Yes.
Yeah. You
I
are you
wrote
resonate with it?
I do, and that actually brings up like it jogged my memory a little bit because my mom I love my mom. We're so close, but it's like my mom used to tell me that all the time of
Mm,
like she could see it, right?
mm,
Like from an outside looking in perspective of someone who knew the real me uninhibited,
Yeah.
she could see it that it's like, you've got to love yourself. Just be yourself. Like, that is
Mhm.
enough. And like, no matter how much she tried to instill that in me and tell me that,
Yeah.
to me, I didn't know what that meant
Mm.
at when I like pre-work. And the
Yeah.
reason I didn't know what that meant is because I genuinely thought, I don't want to show who I am because I'm
Yeah.
anxious. I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
All these things that I deemed as my weaknesses.
Yes.
And in addition to that, because I was hanging on to like all of those things and suppressing who I really was,
Mhm.
I also thought I was a very angry and sarcastic and dark person
Yeah. Yep.
because that was how my emotions were trying to get out.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so it led to so much suppression, not just of like the real me, but
Yeah.
it also led to just a lot of depression and feeling lost in who am I even?
Yeah.
What is the point of any of this? Because I just couldn't grasp onto that because all I saw was the insecurity and the people
Mm.
pleasing and the flaws.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it jogged that memory of like, yeah, like,
Mhm.
we have these well-intentioned advice, but it doesn't do enough because it can't get through and be
Yeah.
received in the
Yeah.
way it's meant to be received
Until you do the inner work.
until you do the inner work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So walk us through. Was there a moment, a breakdown before the breakthrough? What
Oh,
happened for
Lord.
you?
Yes, there was a huge breakdown before the breakthrough. And, um, in 2020, I know 2020 was kind of a tricky year for every
Mm.
healthcare provider out there, but it was my breaking point. It was my breaking year. And yes, leading up to that point, I was already at the point of burnout,
Yeah.
but that was like the straw that broke the horse's back. That
Mm.
was where it it was either quit my job
Yeah.
or I'm not making it through this year. Like,
Mm.
that is where I was in a very mentally dark place that
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to share because there have been so many times that people don't share that. And it's like, no, people need to hear that.
People need to hear it.
And luckily, I had a very supportive husband who was like, we will be fine. Quit your
Yeah.
job. Let's figure out what the next step is. Like, this is not it. Like, I do not want to lose you. Like,
Mm. I love that
please.
you have him.
Yes. And so I did. I quit my job. I had no plan in place. It was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Let me tell you that. But during that time, I stumbled into entrepreneurship,
Mm.
meaning I was just doing something for myself.
Yeah.
And I was baking just as my own therapy. And that became a business that replaced my teaching income, which is crazy to even fathom.
Baking. Amazing.
Baking. Yes.
Why do I have all this student loan debt? Remind me again.
Remind me again? Yeah. I'm a baker now.
Yeah.
But it then, and I thought, okay, maybe it was just the thing I was doing. And that's why I was burnt out.
Yeah.
And I blamed, I chalked it up as a blame game of like, it was the external thing. It was the job. It was the boss. It was the
Yeah.
crappy healthcare system, all these things. And then I burnt out again.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that was my true rock bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because you hadn't changed.
yes, I hadn't
Okay.
changed.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what really put me on that curiosity journey of like, why, if it's not the boss and the job and it's not these external things that I keep blaming, then what is it? And it
What
was
is
like,
it?
hi, it's
Hi.
me. I'm from.
There's only one left.
Yes, there was only one
Yeah.
common denominator, and that was me.
Yeah.
And that led me to just kind of starting to look at what is it within me that is continuing to lead to this point of burnout.
Yeah.
And that's really where I stumbled upon the inner work that I do and that I teach,
Yeah.
which showed me a lot about what I can control
Yes.
and what I can't control.
Yes.
And once I was able to realize that, that's where the turning point happened. That was
Mhm.
like my big aha where everything changed.
Everything.
Everything. Like totally different person. Like if you saw me in 2020 versus who I am today, you wouldn't even think I'm the same person.
Oh, I love hearing that.
Yes.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anything about the way that you see the world now and how you feel and how you show up and move through the world?
Yeah. A lot of it has changed because I started to understand what was driving the way that I saw things in the past.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came down to my own subconscious beliefs
Mhm.
of myself, my worthiness, my insecurities, all of these things.
Mhm.
And like I'm a master certified neuro coach. Like that's what I forgot to mention is that the inner work was in a certification that I took for myself.
Yes.
And that's where I realized the only thing that I really can change is the way that I perceive things, the way that I interpret things, the
Mhm.
way and those subconscious beliefs that I choose to hold or not hold.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
once I was able to accept that,
Yeah.
that I can't control, my husband or I can't control my boss or the
Yeah.
way other people see things, I could control the way I see things.
You get to choose.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that led to just self accountability
Yes.
that
Speaking my language, baby.
that also led to the changes because that is what
Yeah.
allowed me to be free from this like victimhood or like this martyrdom that was actually perpetuating my own anxiety.
Mhm.
Because I saw
Mhm.
that, you know what? If I can change motor patterns as a PT,
Yeah.
why did I not realize I can change belief patterns also?
Exactly. Of course you can.
And that was the big turning point. And
Yeah.
that changed everything because that's what led to me getting curious about what are my beliefs? What are my, you know, insecurities? What are these things? And starting to understand myself on a deeper level,
Mhm.
not just what emotions am I feeling, but
Mhm.
like what's driving those emotions.
Mhm.
And that's what I learned to change and what I teach other people how to recognize and then change that.
Yeah. I love that so much. As you were talking, a memory of one specific client came in. She was new in my program and talking about a an awful situation that had happened in the past with um some people in her family.
Hmm.
And she was like, "Yeah, but it's a bad thing. So how do I just feel differently about it?" And it's like, you get to choose. You get to choose all of it. And that's one of the things that I love walking people through is and it might sound it's not going to sound odd to you, but to people who haven't done the work, you get to choose how you feel about the quote unquote bad things that happen. You get to see them as whatever you want to. I could see the fact that I didn't get a job at General Dynamics in let's see 2012 as a bad thing, as a horrible thing, or it was one thing that lined me up perfectly to be on this path, and I can have gratitude for that. I know that's like the, simple, small thing, but we get to choose how we feel about all of
Yes.
it and what we
And
believe.
I love that story because I do get a lot of that too, where clients will say, yeah, but,
Mhm.
and will
Mhm.
tell me like a situation that really is, not a great situation. Like
Yeah.
point blank, I'm sorry you're going through that type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I actually had a very similar situation post work with my in laws, actually, where like it was a girls thing where the girls would invite everyone to girls' night
Mhm.
and I wouldn't get invited.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
was this whole thing, right? Like, yes, I could have seen it as this is the worst thing ever. This is like, I
Mhm.
can't change that. Woe is me, all of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But once I started doing the work around looking at things differently, like you were sharing of
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
it also made me take accountability for where am I not advocating for myself that's also leading to the results that I keep getting.
Mhm.
And a
Yes.
lot of it was, you know, just not speaking up about what I was feeling to
Mhm.
these situations.
Or about what you want, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once I was able to stop blaming them for all the reasons why I was feeling this way, that way, so on and so forth,
Yeah.
that's where I was actually able to take responsibility and say, well, yes, it is making me feel that way. And here's what I can do about it.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
so that led to a conversation. And then it realized the only reason they weren't inviting me is because they thought I was just too busy. Like
Yeah. It was innocent.
it was innocent.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. Like we are very good, like relationship. We're very close.
Yeah.
But that's all it took was me not making it mean something about me
Yeah.
so that I
And
could take action.
yes, and I know some people listening right now, they're like, "Yeah, but in my situation, it's not innocent." And the beautiful thing is that most of the time, you're wrong.
Mhm.
And I mean, frankly, yes, our brain will find evidence for what we believe. So if you believe that those people are awful and villains and they cut you out and they're not doing it for some reason, you will find evidence for that.
Mhm.
You get to choose the meaning that you put on it, and you get to break that story and break that meaning by doing just what you did, Rihanna, and saying something.
Yes.
I look at that as openness is the grand simplifier, because when I've had clients and I give them a framework for how to address these stories that their mind has made up, when they do it, I'm telling you, almost 100% of the time they've come back and they're like, "Steph, I was wrong."
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't say I told you so. I just said, "Oh, isn't that great?"
Yeah, it's like find some evidence of the opposite, right? Of
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
where that's not always the case. And you will start to see I'm actually making a lot of assumptions from this subconscious belief that's firing.
Yeah.
And it happens so much in different situations, entrepreneurship, family, all of
Oh,
these other
yeah.
things that it's like, I have clients who are like, oh, they didn't respond and that means this and that and blah, 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 blah. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, did they tell you that? No,
No.
no, they didn't. So until they explicitly tell you to your face, it's
Yeah.
an assumption.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Anything else you wanna share about where you are today?
No, just, you know, I know the inner work is uncomfortable,
Mhm.
but the freedom and internal peace on the other side is huge, is everything,
Huge. Yeah.
and so worth it. So that's like really the only thing that I wanted to add.
Yeah. So, so, so worth it. I'm biased, clearly, since this is what I do for a living, but I could not agree more. I have one or two more questions. The first one is, what advice do you have for a high achieving woman who may be listening right now and she finds that she asks herself, why am I like this? And maybe she has moments where she feels broken.
Yeah. First off, it is okay to feel that way.
Mm.
But the good news is you don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
And the biggest advice that I would give is it's really when you say enough is enough.
Hmm.
And I know that that sounds very simple, but that is where all of the people that you've probably worked with, that I've probably worked with,
Hmm.
even our stories that we've shared, chatting in
Yeah.
conversations, that was the turning point for everything, was when I started to say, I am tired of feeling this way.
Yeah.
Is there a better way? And even
Mhm.
if it takes you, working multiple times with different people to finally find whatever way that is for you,
Mhm.
just start to look for that better way.
Yeah.
Even if it's just starting to question, why is it that person X can experiences this emotional freedom and I can't seem to do that?
Yeah.
What is it that we're doing different? And
Mhm.
just be curious. That is like my biggest advice, is just start to be curious. Even if you don't take action, just start to ask questions.
Yeah. Take action. But I was also going to chime in and say one of the most important things that I heard you say is be curious and get curious. You said it a few times today. And that stance can create so many shifts for us when we come from that rather than judging ourselves or putting ourselves down or thinking this is just the way that I am. It's like, okay, what about the way that I'm doing things maybe creating what I don't want?
Mhm.
Everything that you want is on the opposite side of what you are avoiding.
Yes.
What are you avoiding?
Yes. And it
All right.
really comes down to that curiosity.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone listening to the podcast wants to follow you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I am frequently on Instagram. I love my IG. So
Yes.
I am at Dr. Riana Mulcahy. Um, you can find me there. You can shoot me a DM. That's where I tend to be.
Yeah. And the name of your podcast?
The name of my podcast is Breaking the Entrepreneur Burnout Cycle. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful. Okay. I will link both of those in the show notes. And roughly, I don't nearly 50% of the people that I work with are entrepreneurs. So I'm sure that there's some listening right now as well. All right. Thank you so much.
thank you so much for having me.